The following program is brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole.
Hey everybody, this is David Jenkins Jr., and you're listening to Boilers in the Stands.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is my guy, Joe Jackson. And beneath me is a newcomer here for this year. He's not a newcomer to the show. He's been on several times in years past. But my guy, Ben Kolodzinski. How you doing tonight, Ben?
I'm doing really well, Greg. It's really great to see you. It's been a long time. I'm super excited for tonight's episode of Braggs in the Stands.
Yeah, we've been calling these this year it's Braggs in the Stands, obviously, with the network, but we started to transition a little with calling these Boilers in the Stands, as far as what we title the shows. So a lot of the, Boilermaker Nation can figure out who the hell I am. Like, who's this Braggs guy jumping on the scene? So it's trying to put a face to the name or a name to the face, whatever you want to say. Joe's certainly helping out with that as a proud member of the paint crew. He's out there every day cheering. You can see him here.
There he is.
A couple rows back in the paint crew. So, without further ado, let's bring on our special guest for the day. He is a Purdue Hall of Famer and a legend in his own right. Joining the show for the first time ever is Walter Jordan. How you doing tonight, Walter? Thank you so much for coming on here.
Good evening, gentlemen. How we doing?
Good.
Well, yeah,
Good. Wow.
Yeah, we're great. A lot better now that you're here, right? Recently you were inducted into the Purdue Athletic Hall of Fame. You had your induction ceremony last Saturday, and then you were at the game. talk about what that experience for you was like to be remembered and appreciated, for everything you've done for the Purdue basketball program.
Well, I'm certainly humbled and honored. Still so surreal. I mean, it's not something you could ever dream about or think about. And I thank God for his plan. What my plan was his plan. And it was just unbelievable weekend, Boilermaker Nation and the Purdue, John Purdue Club and the Purdue coaching staff and everybody just showed so much love and appreciation. I am so grateful and so proud to be a Boilermaker, and I am deeply humbled and honored by this honor, especially with my good friends Leroy Key's name being attached to it, even more special. So very emotional weekend, up and down, highs and lows. Of course, thinking about my teammate, roommate, friend Eugene Parker. Started thinking about all the coaches that are not here, from Fred Schaus to Bob King to Roger Blaylock to Joe Sexton, and those guys who touched my heart and touched my life at a very young age, at 18 years of age, and being away from home my first time and being able to sleep in my own bed for the first time. So you get emotional. You start thinking about all those guys, but it was a great ride, great journey, and I'm so appreciative of everybody that's been along with that journey with me.
Well, and I think the fans appreciate you being along for the journey nowadays. I mean, we got people in the chat saying, Walter Jordan has the best Twitter takes.
Yes.
You're very active on there, during game day and things like that. And I think that's a lot of fun for people that, cherish this program like we do. And it's great to see someone, that is such a imposing figure with this program still staying connected to it. When you talk about being a part of this program that, now after beating Ohio State, they have a winning record, Purdue does, against every single team in the Big Ten. What is that like for you to know that you are a part of the most Big Ten championships they're looking to add onto that in regular season championships, the winning record against every single Big Ten team? That almost seems impossible. What is that like for you to know that you're a part of such a successful program within the Big Ten?
Well, it's huge. I bleed gold and black. And one of the things that I know for sure that the basketball family, the players, we got fraternity. We love each other. We watch each other. We don't necessarily, not only basketball, but athletics in general. So we root for those individuals that's playing, female and male, representing gold and black. And one of the things why I'm active on Twitter is because I see the negativity out there, and I hate when someone attack any athlete from any school, because I know how tough it is to play at that level. To be the top 1% of anything is a hell of an accomplishment. And people don't know what these kids go through across the board. And what we have to do is be positive and uplifting. No one's trying to miss a shot. No one's trying to turn the ball over. No one's trying to lose a game. If you're out there, you're trying to compete. And we have to keep that in mind. These are young people. So I'm thick-skinned. I can handle what everybody say to me on Twitter. But I'm gonna speak my mind when it comes to protecting these players and somebody I respect, and I respect all players, including the Indiana players. I mean, it's okay to talk about grown people and adults, but the basketball players out there, they're going through a lot. The athletes out there going through a lot, trying to handle school, the pressure of Twitter, the pressure of social media, and all the other stuff that comes with it. So I try to keep that in mind, and I have my own personal thoughts, but I'm not gonna, tweet everything you think, So that's something I try to guard against.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, you as a fan, you kind of miss that when you're talking about college kids. I mean, they're adults, but they're still kids, and anybody that has kids would know when you're that young, you're still a kid, even though you're legally an adult. That doesn't mean they're against criticism, but it's about how you put it out there, right?
Absolutely.
And that's something that, like, here we try to give an analytical approach, and we're not just waving the pom-poms in our post-game shows, but we also are respectful that they're student athletes and there's a bigger picture. Anybody that watches this show knows, part of my story of being a Purdue Boilermaker fan and covering this team is from Sasha Stefanovic, who's a good friend of ours and my family, and we're friends with his family. And
Absolutely.
and I watched that, as far as watching him come up and having to bite my tongue, seeing people be critical of him. And it was hard at times because you kind of get puffy chested for your guy, and you see people saying nasty things or things that are flat out wrong because you're a little closer to what's going on, and they think they know a little better than they do. And it comes with the territory at the end of the day, but at the same time, it is a I think fans need to constantly
the personal attacks when you saying someone's ugly or talking about their families or
right
stuff like that. That has to stay out of the game. That's not necessary because I know if you talk about my son like that or my family like that, those are fighting words. Those are things that need to not be entered into the space. And those are things that I'm talking about, not necessarily, okay, he had a bad game, he didn't play well. Well, we saw that. We can state that. That's okay. But he'll bounce back or something like that. So, I mean, we need to encourage our kid. I try to encourage players individually through the inboxes, and a lot of them engage back with me because I try to keep them positive. Have a bad game, somebody need to lift them up. Somebody who's been through that experience need to pick them up and say, "That's okay. Keep your head up. You got tomorrow. Tomorrow's a bigger game. Let's keep going." And we need people like that too. So trying to balance each other out.
Well, I think any team could have used someone like you. 4 years at Purdue, an illustrious career. I mean, 2-time first team All Big Ten, 5th in all-time rebounds. Somebody here in the chat had some of your points, and it was a good question. So I wanted to make sure I got it out the gate, but now I'm not seeing it. 1,813 points and 882 rebounds. And Jeff Parks asked, how many points do you think you would have had if you would have had the 3-point shot in your years at Purdue?
That's an interesting question. I played with some great players, so we distribute the ball quite a bit. I played with Joe Barry Carroll and Eugene Parker and Bruce Parkinson and Wayne Walls, and I thank God I didn't have to shoulder the burden alone. So, but in the Big Ten at the time, I really believe in my era, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on this podcast, but I think I played in the toughest era there was in the 80s, in the 70s when you had Magic Johnsons of the world, you had the Larry Birds of the world, you had Kevin McHale, the Michael Thompson, Indiana teams with 2 undefeated teams back to back. Michigan went to the Final Four, Ricky Greenfield, Hubbard. Every team had NBA players and guys that can flat out play. And I always thought about just the fact that coaches believed in me. When I was a freshman, they believed in me. Players, teammates believed in me. I didn't come to college just to be a scorer. I was 6'5" when I entered Purdue, and I left 6'8". So I was recruited to be a 2-guard along with Eugene Parker, but I ended up being a freshman. Then they put me small forward, and I made a mistake of showing Coach Shouse I can rebound, so I stayed at small forward.
That's good. I want to throw it to these guys. This is my co-host over to my right or left. I don't even know what it is. My head's spinning at this point. Laying the bricks in the cold today. Hard to think straight. But to my right is Joe Jackson, and underneath is a good friend of mine, Ben Kolodzinski from Indiana Sports Coverage. So I'm going to throw it to those guys now that I've fired a few away. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, like Brad's kind of said, you had an illustrious career at Purdue. Do you have just a favorite, game or maybe a memory within a game? When you kind of think back of your career at Purdue, one that really stands out to you.
There's several. Of course, beating Indiana at Assembly Hall my junior year was big. Played really well the second half. Beating Magic Johnson at Michigan State at home. Last time I played against him, splitting with Michigan against Magic. That's always a thrill. Splitting with Larry Bird, that was a thrill. Had one of my better games against Michigan State. I think I had 28 points, 16 rebounds, or something like that. He had 28 too, but it was a great game. That was my senior year. A couple other games, 28 points my freshman year against Michigan State. My first Big Ten start stands out. Of course, Minnesota playing against McHale and Michael Thompson, who I think is a better player than Klay Thompson in college. His dad, but playing against Minnesota, every time we seen them play, we was triple overtime, no matter what. They had a great team. I thought the most talented team in the Big Ten, even with Indiana's 2 undefeated, basically teams. I thought Minnesota had more talent. So we always seemed to take them to overtime, to triple overtime. Every time we played Minnesota, it seemed like it was going to be an overtime game. But beating them after they led most of the game at Williams Arena in that madhouse and to force overtime to hit the shot to send us to overtime, then we end up beating them in overtime. So those are some of the games that stand out. Of course, rivals against Michigan and Indiana games will always stand out. I had a chance to beat Indiana 3 of the 4 times that we played them when they won the national championship. In the season before that, we had them 3 out of the 4 times. We had them beat. We're the closest to them losing those two years. Those 3 out of 4 times we had them. So those games stand out the most.
Before I throw it to Ben, when you talk about playing against Larry Bird and Magic Johnson back when they were in their college days, I mean, everyone knew, and then you eventually get drafted in the NBA in the 4th round in 1978. So you were kind of like right in that spot where basketball took off, like a rocket ship. And it was largely because of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and that rivalry in college, and then moving it on to the NBA. What was that like for you to, you played against them, you played well against them, and then to watch them revolutionize the sport and turn it into a global, I always want to credit my guy Michael Jordan here off behind me, but it was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson that set the foundation for what the NBA and basketball in general is today. What was that like for you to experience watching that climb and be a part of it?
Well, I know Larry since high school because we came out to 74 together. We played on the Indiana All-Star team together. We played on the World University game team together. We won a gold medal together. So I know Larry really well. I know he talks a lot of trash, but but to see him progress to where he became Larry Bird before he was, Larry Bird, he was incredible. A young guy who's very, very talented, and you can tell that no one's going to outwork him. He's really smart. He understood the game. And I was just proud of him. I'm proud of his development. Of course, you always want to beat him, but there's very few people I think that I pride myself on being outworked. I think Larry Bird just outworked me. But I also think that Magic was special in the way that he was just so gifted. If there was ever somebody that had the right nickname, it was Magic Johnson. He was just magical. I mean, he walks in a room and that's Magic Johnson, So what he's doing now is it's not by accident. I think he's been granted great favor in his life, overcoming some of the things he's overcome with his health. But that's Magic Johnson. He's a winner. He's won at everything he's attempted to do. And so I'm not surprised that they're achieving at the high level that they've achieved and are still doing it. So I wish them well because they're good people. Great to compete against them. I mean, you always want to compete against the best. I took pride in trying to play my best against the best. I had a tough time getting up for guys we're supposed to be, but when you play against the big games, like this game coming up Saturday, I text the guys, this is what you come to Purdue for. This is what it's all about. You got to show up in the big games, right. And I take pride in showing up. I took pride in showing up in the big games.
What's your best trash talking Larry Bird story? I mean, we've heard so many throughout the years, specifically in the NBA, but what do you got from us from a younger Larry Bird day?
Well, we were in Southport for the Indiana High School Kentucky All-Star game, and we had just finished practice, and the coaches, we was out by the pool. We were all by the pool, and Coach Overton walks by, and he's the head coach, and Larry Bird says, "I'm going to throw him in the pool." And we said, "Get out of here! You're not going to throw Coach in the pool." And guess what? He threw him in the pool. But Larry he's just so much fun. He was such a character. We hung out, but he's just so much fun on the court. I remember playing my rookie year, and he had gotten, he came in the league, and we're playing in Boston Garden, and I get in the game, and he said, "I was waiting for you." I said, "Why in the hell are you waiting for me? I wasn't waiting for you." But he says, "Walt," he said, "next time someone's shooting a free throw, he comes stand by me. He says, I'm going to get the ball in the left elbow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the ball, turn over my left shoulder. I'm just going to shoot it. I'm not going to dribble and shoot in your face. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it." And I said, "Shut the hell up, man." I'm already nervous. I'm a rookie. I'm playing against the Boston Celtics. And guess what he did? He got the ball, turned over his left shoulder, and put it in the bucket. So and that was just Larry Bird. And he smiled and he said, "I told you what I was going to do, and I told you couldn't stop me." So
isn't that crazy?
I laugh all the time about it because he's just, and we laughed about it after the game, so it was all good.
Isn't that crazy? Jordan was similar, but like Larry, I don't know, like, because Kobe mirrored a lot of what Michael ended up, being, as close as you could get to MJ, which is an amazing accomplishment for Kobe. I
Yes.
don't know if there's anybody that will ever be like Larry Bird again. His uniqueness, his feel for the game. When I hear kids today, shortchange him, they don't and not put him in top 5 all time. Like, I don't think they quite understand just how uniquely special he was, and his touch and feel for the game, the shooting, from all different angles and everything else. Go ahead.
But one of the things that kids today don't understand is they disrespect their history. They disrespect the Oscar Robertsons of the world because they did 16 dribbles behind the back, step back, and all that other stuff. We could have done it if it was shown before us. That wasn't shown before us. That was not the style of play. So we didn't practice that stuff. We practiced fundamental basketball. Larry Bird was strong fundamentally, smart footwork. He couldn't jump. He wasn't quick. He took what God gave him and made himself a hell of a basketball player. You got to respect anybody that does that. He wasn't blessed with a 40-inch vertical. He wasn't just blessed with a 4.140. He was blessed with what he got, 6'9", very, very smart, tough as hell, and a hell of a competitor. And he took that and he ran with it. And so you have to respect that. So a lot of guys can jump out the gym and they have no fundamentals, no knowledge of the game, and they're not good basketball players.
When people ask me when I have picked my top 5, typically I try to pick guys that I watched play. But when I go to point guard, I have a lot of love for Steph Curry. I think he is, and I don't, just as much as like young kids sell the pass short. Anybody that sells the game nowadays short, I always point to Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. I mean, it's basketball poetry when they're playing at their best. But I would never pick Steph over Pistol Pete Maravich at point guard. To your point about fundamentals and not having a 3-point shot, they didn't, and he didn't, and he dropped like 48 a game, like literally average in the 40s for LSU. I mean,
you and I get along because I saw the Bears stuff, and I grew up in Chicago.
Well, that I was definitely going there with the sweetness, and we'll get to that. But I'm loving this old school basketball talk, and the thing that I wanted to ask you when it comes to like Pistol Pete, not necessarily Pistol, but like just how much the game has evolved from then to now. What is your perspective of that? And in comparison to the Big Ten in particular, how fascinating is it that the Big Ten really is like the last institution that hasn't changed that much over the last few decades? So your perspective on the game itself changing so much in the last 40 years, and the Big Ten in a lot of ways staying the same.
I have a lot of respect for the athletes today, the basketball players today. But at the same time, we played multiple sports. Baseball season, played baseball. Football season, we grew up playing different sports. These kids are so specialized. They have trainers year round. They have the best nutritionists in the world. They're built differently than most of us. When we were back in the day, we played with broke fingers. Kids today don't play with a cut on their finger. I think they're not as tough as we were, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, as far as mentally tough. So I look at that a lot, and I look at the fact that you look at the NBA load management. What the hell is that? So when I think about old school, I think about guys that really worked at their craft, but they also knew their history and they respected their history. They know who Pistol Pete was. They know who Bill Russell's story, not just on the court, but off the court. They know the stories about your history. I couldn't wait to watch a Pete Maravich film. I couldn't wait to watch him driving the car and dribbling the ball outside the car. And I listened to Pistol Pete and Austin Carr and Calvin Murphy games on the radio when I was in middle school. We didn't have them on TV like they got all these games on TV. It's ridiculous. You can watch anything. Imagine we could watch all these great players play constantly. How much better we would be. We had the NBA on Sundays. You might get one game, the NBA game of the week. It's usually Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, somebody, right? That's all we had. We had that one game. So imagine every night you get to watch basketball. from all over the country, some of the greatest player out there, you're going to be better. You know, we had the 3-point shot. They took the high school, we couldn't dunk. My high school, we had 6'11", 6'6", 6'5". We couldn't even dunk in high school. And we won the state championship, and everybody say, well, what we did was you got one shot on us, and that was it. You know, you got one, you missed, it's over. So those are things I remember, just how tough it was. I remember Oscar Robertson saying that what separates him, because he didn't have any fancy footwork. He just said, you give me 12 feet, I want 8. You give me 8, I want 6. You give me 6, I want a layup. That's what's his thinking. He wasn't trying to shoot 3-pointers. He was trying to get the advantage and get some buckets. And he did that, the best of them. And Pistol Pete was just he could play at any era. Some of these guys can play at any era. Pistol Pete could play at any era. He could play today. I think Rick Mount, because how good a shooter he was, he could play today. So you look at some of those players. Kareem could play anywhere, anytime, anywhere. You couldn't stop him. I don't care what style of play you play. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would score 45 today.
Yeah.
You could not stop Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So
the only thing that stopped him, they had to ban dunking when he played in college.
No, absolutely. But a lot of these kids don't even know who these guys are. I always amazed by guys who play college basketball or aspire to play college basketball, don't know their history. Yeah. And it blows me away. How are you going to be great if you don't know your history? You got to know your history.
Yep. And I think just for me growing up in the 90s, you know, I was born in 85 and that was like the golden era of basketball. And they did such a great job of honoring, you know, those before them, you know, the 50th anniversary, and they do so many things that taught me about those players where it was still not so far in the distant past. So I could understand the relevance and the importance of those players. So, you know what, honestly, Walter, I could talk to you about some of these stories for 5 hours when you start getting into old school basketball, and we've gone completely off the rails here, but like, it is fascinating from your perspective, having played with these guys. I literally am going to call you one day and I'm not letting you off the phone, because it is that like I love all sports, football, baseball, basketball. I roll over, but why I became such a passionate fan of sports was Michael Jordan. I was raised by Michael Jordan. And so basketball is always going to be my first love. And so to hear some of those stories honestly puts chills down my spine. So I appreciate you giving us some insight there, but I've left Ben hanging down here and he's waiting patiently to get a question in. So fire away, Ben.
So Walter, your accolades on the court have been tremendous, and you've been honored for those becoming a Purdue Hall of Famer. I would be remiss if I did not bring up the fact that your charity work and your positive mental attitude off the floor is bringing an extra boost to the youth of America. Can you talk about your charity work that you've done off the floor, and tell me about how to make a winning day something that you're famous for?
Wow. Well, thanks for bringing that up, and I appreciate that. I get emotional about it because I was blessed. I was blessed to have 3 older siblings, and I'm the 7th child of 10. And 3 older siblings, my 3 older brothers were my heroes. They set standards very, very high. There's some things in the Jordan family that just simply wasn't allowed. I can't was not allowed. Making excuses, not allowed. Free lunches, not allowed. There's things you got, as I spoke on at the Hall of Fame speech, was, you know, I was 7 boys in one bedroom, 3 girls in another bedroom, my parents in the other. We had 1 bathtub. Think about that. So hell, we need to learn how to play team at an early age. Think about that. So the standards were set. So we had a lot of kids didn't have that. They didn't have the heroes under their roof. I saw that. When I was in middle school, I was at Fairfield Middle School. Right across the street was Allen County Society for Crippled Children and Adults. My citizenship teacher, Miss Betty Stein, she sent our class over there one day to be with the handicapped children. I fell in love with a young lady. She was about 12 years old at the time. And so every Wednesday, Miss Stein would let me go see her across the street. She would give me 15 minutes to go see her. So we became very, very close. When I didn't show up, she would cry. So I said to myself, Lord, if I'm ever able to do anything, I'm going to do something for these kids. And so when I got to college and I had a pretty good career, I came back home to Fort Wayne, and I started a fundraiser basketball game, which turned into an NBA sanctioned All-Star game, which was 100% fundraiser for Allen County Society of Crippled Children and Adults and for Big Brothers Big Sisters. She touched my heart even to this day. I thought about her this weekend because when I went away and came back home, we raised thousands of dollars for these charities because, like I said, it was 100% fundraisers. But the bottom line was, she touched my heart and she inspired me to get involved in the community, and I wanted to make her proud. I finally found out that she had passed away about 2 years ago, but I think about her all the time. So she's inspired me to get back involved with these kids. And so for the last 30 some years, I've been involved. I run a youth program here called Impacting Our Youth in Atlanta, Georgia, and Fort Wayne. I did the same basic thing. We've been blessed to help over 120 kids find their college homes through academics or athletic scholarships. So it's a ministry for me. I think I get more out of that than they do, because to being around kids, man, I'm telling you, we don't do isms in my organization. I don't play any isms in my life, and people get caught up on the color. I look at the faces, not races. So I'm always looking for your soul, looking for somebody that really want to make a difference and inspire people. And in this world today, I get so frustrated sometimes with adults and how we think and how we treat each other. And when I go around these kids 2 or 3 times a week, I get nothing but love. I get love from their parents. I get love. That's why I still do it, because every year they won't let me quit. And someone asked me, Coach Jordan, when you gonna quit? I said, when the good Lord stop giving me a new bucket list.
So I just think it's a wonderful thing that you, who has had tremendous success here as an athlete, you're still giving back, and it's more than just shooting a bucket, hitting a free throw. It's more than winning a Big Ten championship or winning a national championship. You are continuing to give back to society, and that's why we as Boilermakers are very proud of you to be an alumni of our organization, because you are the 100% positive influence. We see it on Twitter, and it has fed into my personal life, and wow. I really appreciate what you do for our university.
Well, thank you for saying that. I always say it's the difference between winning and being a winner. It's a huge difference, and people get it twisted. I don't winning a basketball game or a tournament or getting a trophy or an award don't make you a winner. A winner is somebody that cares about other people. You asked about a winning day. It's okay. Who did you affect today? Did you answer the phone when the phone rang and somebody needed you? That's winning. That's becoming a winner. I want to win. I also want to become a winner. And every day I'm striving to do that. I'm striving to get better. Every day I try to get better. I start my devotion up every morning. Lord, please guide me. Please help me get better. I need to get better. I need to be better. Because when the time comes, and my time comes, the good Lord calls me home, I'd rather be climbing uphill than sliding downhill. Because at the end of the day, I want him to say, well done. Well done.
Yeah, that's pretty inspiring stuff, man. And I pride myself on always trying to keep a positive mindset every day. One of the sayings I always like to say is brick by brick. I'm a bricklayer, and absolutely. I think there's like, it's taught me a lot, about life and just moving on to the next brick. And not all bricks are going to be perfect, but when the wall is done, you don't notice the imperfect brick. You notice the wall.
Absolutely.
And it teaches you a lot about life and patience and everything else. So we appreciate you sharing that story with us. When you talk about, what you've been through in this program, and you see some of these players that have come through now, and you fast forward to today, what is it like for you to see these guys representing Purdue in a meaningful way? Like, it just seems like Purdue's program is cut from the cloth you're talking about. They look for these types of guys. what is that like for you? Is there a sense of pride that these guys represent Purdue in the right way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it starts with the coaching staff. It starts with the leadership from Matt Payne to Brandon Brantley to Coach Elliott to Coach Johnson, all the way down. It starts with them. It's the standards they set. One of the things I love about Matt Painter is that he's transparent with his players. I know because I speak to him. He tells them the honest to God truth about where they need to do and what they need to give playing time. They all know what's expected of them when they touch the floor, or more importantly, when they're off the floor. They know what's expected of them. You got guys at Purdue University that's playing basketball, giving it 120% if they're playing for that name on the front of their jersey and they represent the name on the back of their jersey. They know who they are. They're fine young men. They play for each other. They're fun to watch. They're not afraid to get dirty. When I see 7'4" Edie diving on the floor for a loose ball, come on, guys. You don't get excited about that. Something wrong with you. You probably go find another team to root for.
Right.
Because this is what it's all about. And I always tell people this, everybody worry about ranking, what a player rate. Is he 5-star? Is he 4-star? I don't never get caught in that. I have never got caught. I don't know if I was a star, 1-star. But the bottom line is a player's heart. You look at a Braden Smith, even Ethan Morton or, Mason Gillis and their heart and who they are. Purdue's a place where I always tell people where a 2 or 3-star player will become a 5-star player. Well, you got other colleges where 5-star high school players will become 2 or 3 college players, 2 or 3-star college players. That's just the way it is because they're going to work, they're going to bust their butt, they're going to be in a great system to succeed. The character, the standards, the environment, the young men we have at Purdue are worth rooting for. And they're worth defending. And that's why I do it, because I know some of their characters. You're going to tell me you can't root for Mason Gillis? You need to go somewhere else and find another team. And that's just how I feel about these young men. Regardless, we all make mistakes and nobody's perfect. And we all understand that. But that's not for us to judge them. Our judge is to be there and support them when they do, because that's going to make them stronger and better too, because they did make a mistake. No one's going to play perfect every game. No one can do it. We're all human beings.
Nope. And I know I made a million mistakes. My mom's in the chat right now, and she'd be the first one to tell you. When they say it takes a village, I epitomize that statement, Walter.
Well, I'm glad my mom is not it. I'm glad my mom is not on right now.
I'm from Crown Point, Indiana. We call it the region around here. It took the entire region to get me through life. Somehow I made it, luckily. So, you talk about Matt Painter. This is a great picture of you and Matt, and watching his career, he's coming up on 20 years as the head coach here at Purdue men's basketball. Talk about his evolution as a coach, and it seems like now he's really starting to get into his groove, as far as, just his prowess. Like, he just looks so comfortable out there, and he's an amazing play caller and a great leader of men, like you said. What's your perspective on everything Coach Painter has done in his evolution as a coach?
Well, I think you're 100% right, but you got to get the right type of players. I think this team is more of a Matt Painter player-friendly team than even last year. I thought last year was more talented, but this is a better team. You had individuals that I don't want to say it, but I don't think they really bought into the fact that they could really do something as a team. When you got 1 or 2 guys that are basically waiting to get to the NBA, and nothing against that, nothing at all, because I enjoy after watching these guys play. Don't get me wrong, and some of my favorite memories are watching these guys play. But Matt Painter, the way he coaches, he needs guys that fit into their roles. I tell people all the time, your 5 best starters, not necessarily your 5 best players. And sometimes you ride the guys that's playing well. It's when people are playing well and they're doing what they're supposed to, they stay on the floor. So it's important that you when you get your opportunity, you take advantage of it. I remember David Jenkins playing for a lot of minutes because he was playing well. Sit down, Smith. I remember Mason Gillis coming to the game going for 29 and 30, whatever he went for. That's great. That's great for the players to see, because if you're performing and producing, you're on the floor, and then the other guys are accepting it. The other guys on your teammates are accepting the fact, and they're rooting for you. Now, I don't know if we would have had that last year if one of the star players were not playing well and he took them out and set them down for 10, 15 minutes. I'm not sure if they would have accepted that as well. That's just my personal view. As this year, I see guys sitting on the bench, Curly first, and struggling, sitting there up there cheering for Mason like he's in the game. I mean, that's special. I watch all that stuff on their posture on the bench. That gets me excited because this is what it's all about. That's why we have a chance, I think, to do something special because of that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that assessment. And as you mentioned, it's not a knock on Jaden or Travion or any of these guys that, had bigger aspirations. I mean, when you're talking about Jaden being looking at being a top 5 pick in the NBA, that's a lot of pressure. And as we mentioned, they're kids. And, they do homework, on a lot. I think there's a stigma with
Absolutely.
college student athletes that they don't have to do their homework. Trust me, they do. And you're sitting here, you're Jaden Ivey, and you've got all this pressure to be a great player, and you've got to stay healthy because you've got top 5, lottery pick down the scopes, and then you're trying to do homework while lead a team to their first Final Four since 1980. It's a lot for a young kid.
Absolutely. Let alone the phone calls you're getting from agents. These agents are blowing up these kids' phone. They're fooling them. But Jaden was a pro. He was an NBA player halfway through the season. We knew he was going to be a great NBA player. You got to be a college player sometimes before. He was already an NBA player. He was not a college player. He was great in college, but you knew he was destined for the NBA. The way the NBA plays today, he's going to be a lottery pick, and he's going to have a great career. If he stays healthy, I expect him to be an NBA All-Star one day. That's how good, talented he is.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
And if they had played back in the day, like we mentioned, where you played 4 years, even if you were a future NBA Hall of Famer, and nowadays, the pressure of leaving early and things like that, and you have to do it once you get your opportunity.
Got to do it.
No fan is ever going to begrudge a player for that, as much as we want them to stay, like Zach Edey. We hope he stays. But you're right. At the end of the day, this team, you got Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer that are freshmen. They're not thinking about any of that. All they're thinking about is getting better and learning, and they're like a sponge. Zach Edey, same thing. Matt Painter talks about it all the time. He just picked up a basketball 5 years ago, so anything Matt Painter teaches him, he's growing with it because Matt's the first coach to really sink his teeth into him.
When I hear Matt Painter before the season, we text each other all the time, and Brandon Brantley and I, we text each other all the time before the season. I text and said, I really, really like this team. And I heard Coach Patch text me and say, I do too, in caps. And then Brandon Brantley says that Edey is just a flat joy to work with. He's unbelievable. I felt, okay, we're in good shape. This is coming from the two guys who would know. So before the season started, I was excited about what happened and what was taking place, even before they start winning all the games they won at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Edey has been absolutely dominant this season. Looking at an opportunity to win National Player of the Year, certainly probably the front runner at this point. Joe, go ahead and fire away. I don't want to. I literally could be here all night with you, Walter. I'm not even playing. So, I gotta just kick it around the horn so we can get a few more in, and cut you loose and let you get to bed or get ready for this Northwestern game that I know all Purdue fans are gonna have their eyes on. But I literally could go all night. Like we've had a lot of great guests on. We've had Matt Painter. We just had Zach Edey and some of the current players and some of the former guys. Robbie Hummel and Chris Kramer, and they've all been great. They've been great guests. Walter, I texted Craig, Craig Bowers, our other co-host, who's working tonight, so he couldn't make it, unfortunately. But you are literally you're at the top of my list now, my man.
Wow.
So
I'm
going to ask about Walter Payton and sweetness, but I want to finish. I want to finish there, and get to the Purdue stuff first. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, you've been naming a lot of players on the team, like Gillis, Edey, diving for loose balls, things like that. Is there anybody over the past decade, 2 decades, whatever, where you're just like, man, I really wish I could have got to play with that player from Purdue? There's anybody that's just like, it would have been fun to play with them?
That's a great question. There's so many. I mean, one of the things, Kyle Macy, when he played 1 year with Kyle Macy before he transferred to Kentucky, I love playing with Kyle Macy. I love playing with Jerry Season, of course, Eugene Parker, Wayne Walls, all those guys, Bruce Parks. I love playing with those guys, Joe Barry. So I was blessed to play with some really good players. You know, the ones that stand out to me are just personalities, like a Travion Williams with the energy and the getting up, because that's how I play. Fired up, have another guy on the bench where you just act crazy. You gonna get fired up. Travion Williams and people like that, people that had that kind of attitude. Carson Edwards with his grit and toughness, and you know his will to just try to win the game. You know, just fight, show up in the big games. You know, those kind of guys. Etwan Moore, who I have a lot of respect for. Dewan Johnson. You know, it's just so many. You look at Purdue's history, man, it's frightening. I mean, you think about the great players we've been blessed to have wearing gold and black. And of course, the top of the list would be Big Dog, you know, to play the big dog at the 4 and have me at the 3. I would like to see what that would look like. But
dangerous right there. Yeah.
I would have a lot more assists. But but yeah, that I think about that sometimes, because I thought Big Dog was the best college basketball player I've ever seen. I remember scoring 49 points in his final game, I think, against Illinois at home, something like that, something ridiculous. I was at the game when he beat the Fab Five, him and Quanzo Martin at Mackey, and I remember hearing the story about Chris Webber and Rose trying to get him to come to Michigan. And they told him he'll never win a Big Ten title as long as he's there, because he didn't come to Michigan. And guess what? They never won a Big Ten title. Big Dog got
right.
There you go. Go ahead, Ben.
The last thing that I want to ask you, Walter, is simple. I've been looking through the comments on this section and kind of reading through. There are people here in our comment section, and I'm sure there's people here who are watching who want to contribute to your charitable efforts. How do we do that?
Wow. We will be honored. We just started. I got back home my wife and I took Monday off. We spent in Indianapolis before we flew back here to Atlanta. And we had already had our first team impact practice where we've got 120 kids. So last night I had to suck it up and go to practice to see the kids and the parents. So we're always looking. We try to help 50 families from economic disadvantaged families every year. My wife and I try to raise money with our friends, and of course we contribute as well. But anything that I do is real simple. I'm a very simple person. They can go to walterjordan.com. Everything is on there. My book, my events, my charity work. Got some camps coming up. Got a huge event, Hoops and Leadership Conference, Hoops and Leadership Camp, Parkview Hospital and Wayne TV, and those guys sponsored. Be our second year in Fort Wayne, coming up in May. So there's plenty of opportunities to support some kids and support our program. So walterjordan.com will get you anything you need. So I also like to thank everybody who's personally bought my book. I get emotional about it because Lord knows it's transparent. You guys will see that I'm a very imperfect person. I admit all that in my book, things I've done, challenges I've had, from being having quadruple bypass at the age of 50, and Lord blessing me to still be here, to making mistakes with young ladies and stuff like that I've owned up to, that God has forgiven me for, that I'm trying to be better for. And I tell kids, don't want to know how great you are. They want to know you made mistakes too, but you bounce back. And that's a story I want my kids and my grandkids to know. Your uncle, your granddad, you wasn't perfect, but you can change. You can be better. You can fix it. God forgives you. Who gives a damn if anybody else does, right? So those are the stories that and I've been blessed to. Blew my mind. Got the numbers the other day. I've sold 4,000. You guys purchased 4,000 books. If someone told me I sold 4 books, I wouldn't believe it. But I'm just so grateful for God's favor in each and every week. Boilermaker Nation is incredible. I mean, you guys rock. You guys have never let me down. One of the best quotes I've ever heard. Charlie Scott. You probably remember that name. You guys remember that name, Charlie Scott? North Carolina, Boston Celtics. Right?
Okay.
Charlie Scott they asked him, what do you think about Michael Jordan? He said, I've watched Michael Jordan 1,500 times since he was this tall. 1,500 times I watched Michael Jordan, and he has never, ever let me down. That's how I feel about my family. That's how I feel about Boilermaker Nation.
Yeah,
They've never let me down.
I can attest to that with MJ. I mean, and he was somebody I looked up to greatly as a kid, and I needed that. My mom's in the chat, and it was a single parent household. My mom raised me, on her own, and for me to have that, to have the Bulls to look up to in a lot of ways had a big impact on my life. Basketball can teach you a lot about life, sports in general, but basketball in this instance. And we'll do everything we can on our end to promote your book and your website here over the next few days. And in the months and years going forward, we're going to make sure we do a great job of that. When we link this show tomorrow, we'll have those links up. Shara says she's on her way over to the website right now to check it out after this, because there were certainly people in the chat asking about that. We did have a few questions in the chat, so I wanted to quickly go through those just out of respect to the people that are watching. Jeff Parks asked, do you think Brandon Brantley will be a head coach someday?
It's just amazing. Before I left to come home, Brandon met me at the Union Building. He came over from his busy schedule that morning, and we sit down and chatted for an hour. That's the kind of class guy he is. He said, well, I had to come over and see you and congratulate you personally before you left. And we talked about how much we meant to each other. And I asked him that question. And he said that was never his dream. His dream was never to be a head basketball coach or never to coach. He said, but he reached out to Painter, and Painter brought him aboard. And he said, he's home. He said, he's home. As long as Matt Painter's at Purdue, he's at Purdue. He said, he's a Boilermaker. He said, I have no reason to go anywhere else. He said, this is the best job in America. So that was encouraging to me. And I asked him, I said, I know people have reached out to you. He said, yeah, but he said, I'm not looking to go anywhere. So I'm praying that him and Matt stay here for a while, because I think we're building something special. I think we're a consistent program. And every year we're going to be right there in the mix because of the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, we got our hands full with Micah Shrewsbury now over at Penn State. If Brandon takes over another Big Ten school, then Matt's really going to be up against it. I asked Matt a question after that Penn State game, like, what is the chess match like going up against the two? And Matt joked, he's like, well, neither of us play, But then he gave a really nice detailed answer about how they used to come up with, plays from when Coach Shrewsbury was in the NBA and the things that they couldn't stop. And he picked his brain from that with the Celtics days to implement what they put into their offense. Yeah, and then It was funny, Ethan Morton, when he was on, he was like, I wasn't sure when Coach Shrewsbury left, if Matt Painter could call plays, because Coach Shrewsbury called all the plays when he was here.
Exactly.
And then he was like, I didn't realize how deep Matt Painter's bag was. And Ethan got a lesson real quick that Mike is the student and Matt's the teacher.
But think about what you just said. How many head coaches at the Matt Painter statue would admit to that? And Eagle wouldn't be so big enough that he'll say, this guy's important to me. I've learned so much from my assistant coaches. There's so many coaches we know, I'm not naming anybody, that would never admit to that, even if they're learning from someone else, or think they know 110%. That's when you get in trouble, when you think you know it all. And to have Matt Painter be so humble. Matt is so humble and personable. And I've watched him before he became, Matt Painter. I just love the guy, who he is, the person that he is outside of basketball, because he has integrity. He has strong character. He's a leader. He's a winner. And I tell people all the time, if you don't have Matt Painter, don't want Matt Painter, who in the hell would you want? Right. Look around and see the mess these colleges are going to right now. But the standards we have, stuff we don't have to worry about. We can just come and be pure cheerleaders and root for our guys, because we know Matt's bringing in the right quality people and character to our program.
Amen.
Yeah, 100%. Midwest says, how was it playing with Joe Barry?
I played with Joe Barry his freshman and sophomore year. Rocky Mountain High. But when Joe Barry came in as a freshman, we were related. Very, very talented. Joe Barry could have been a 10-year NBA All-Star player. His rookie year in NBA was really, really good. Joe Barry had the softest hands and the nicest touch that you ever want for a big man. When I left and Coach Rose came in, they challenged him. He picked up his intensity, his toughness. There was games where he'll play against Michael Thompson and Kent Benson as a freshman and sophomore, and he would just hold his own. So we knew he's going to be a great player. And I'm just so happy to see his growth, because when you're big, that's why I get excited about Edie. Big guys develop slower and later than everybody else. People don't realize that Edie's going to be a beast. He's not even nearly as good as he's going to be. He's going to be frightening. I just hope he's around one more year so he can see it. But they developed later. So I saw Joe Barry come. I watched him get to the Final Four, and yeah, he was a great player. I love him, great teammate. We stay in touch. I talked to him a couple weeks ago. So he's doing big things. He's doing great things. So I'm happy for him. And I love Joe Barry Carroll. So when people start talking about great big men in Purdue, please don't forget about Joe Barry. Please don't forget about him.
Yeah, definitely not. Kevin Pass asked, we were talking earlier about the no 3-point line. Did people still shoot from that distance, even though the 3-point line wasn't there?
Well, we had some guys that can make that shot for sure. I think Wayne Walsh can make that shot, a small forward. And I think, Eugene Parker was a layup for him. Jerry Seasteen can shoot that ball. Bruce Parkinson. We had guys on the bench that can shoot that shot. It was just never emphasized.
Would you be told not to take that shot within an offensive set?
At that time, probably with Coach Strauss, probably. But it depends. I just think that if we made it, there's nothing he can do. If we shot it and make it, what can we say, right? It's not gonna take.
That's who I was as a kid, playing in pups basketball or Porter League's Little League basketball. I was too afraid to go inside, so I wanted to be a 3-point. I wanted to be like Steve Kerr. I knew I wasn't going to be like Mike, even though the song sounded nice. But I could be like Steve Kerr if I set my goals right. So I'd always be shooting, and I didn't want a hand in my face, so I'd step way back behind the 3-point line to fire one. And I can remember days where I'd put one up, and the coaches would be like, "No!" and then it'd go in, and they'd be like, "Okay, good shot." And then the other times when I missed, that's when I'd be finding the pine. But that's funny. Isn't it funny though? Going back, but it's like spacing now has become so analytically in
Absolutely.
The NBA specifically. It is kind of. It's kind of fascinating how it took that long for analytics to figure out that spacing is what was going to change the game. And it was just so boxed in. I actually prefer the old way of basketball, but I can appreciate what basketball is nowadays. And I know that's hard for some, but spacing is certainly a big part of it. Jeff Parks did ask a great question when you're talking about your charitable efforts and trying to give back to people. Have you ever had a chance to speak with Rafael Davis? We've had him on the show here the last couple of years. He's great about giving back. He spoke on this show about gyms costing so much that kids don't get the opportunity to play. Have you ever had a chance to talk with him or even work with him?
Oh, absolutely. Rafael Davis is, of course, from Fort Wayne, Indiana, 260. Right. But my brother my oldest brother taught him how to drive. He's a driver's ed teacher. So it's a lot of pride there. And I know Rafael's dad pretty well. So I followed him and his career. We chat. In fact, we're talking about having him come speak at my camp in June. So yes, I speak to him often. I love what he's doing with the crew and other stuff that he's doing in the community. I support him. I follow up with him, and we're going to do some other stuff in the future. We're both trying to do the same thing as far as touch some lives and save some souls. And and help these kids. So kindred spirits and just nothing but love and respect for him, and doing a great job, by the way, with Big Ten Network. And
Yep.
I'm just so proud of him. I mean, and I'm proud of all our 260 players, and it's a lot of us that came from the Fort Wayne area guys, Purdue program, and that's another prideful thing for me. I take pride in the fact that Chuck started with Chuck Davis, and then Eugene and myself, and now the Roseville Barnes of the world, and then other players that's come through there, Kayla Swanigan, and I can go on and on, Ricky Hall and Greg Littlejohn, and I can just go on and on. We've had some Greg Eifert. I mean, just guys are just from Fort Wayne. So I always tell the Indiana fans from Fort Wayne, why in the hell you root for those guys? Most of the players from Fort Wayne went to Purdue, and we need to be rooting for Purdue. So it's
well, and that for me being from the region, that was one of the things that stood out right away when I started really investing my emotion and time into this program, is how much the region is respected here at Purdue. And we are like the forgotten stepchild of the state in a lot of ways, because people kind of assume we're more Chicagoans than even Hoosier, Indiana, I don't want to say Hoosiers in rivalry week, but people from Indiana, I should say. So I maybe one day we'll stack up the best region teams.
Let me tell you this quick story. You talk about the region. One of my favorite stories is watching the Indiana High School State Tournament when Alan Henderson was playing against the Big Dog. You guys remember that for the state championship? Mm-hmm. Before that state championship game, it was a lock that Alan Henderson was going to win Mr. Basketball because he was going to Indiana University. So what happens was, Big Dog goes on the big stage and he just dominates the game. They had no choice but to give him that Mr. Basketball award after that night. No choice. Yeah. And so if it wasn't for him playing that well, he would not have been Mr. Basketball, and that would have been a shame.
Yeah, it definitely would. And we've had women's basketball players here recently get short-sighted for,
absolutely
the best player. It's like we try so hard in the region, like, give us some love here, but we get absolutely. It. The guys downstate, are going to get a little more attention than we do. So you got to play above it. We got a few people in chat. Jesse says, "Hey, Walter, lifelong Boiler fan and Northrop grad and disciple of the Ron Barnes sex ed health class." I don't exactly know what that means, Jesse, but okay. That one went somewhere. I don't even know what that means. So let's just move on to the next one. But Cindy Barger says, "Loved watching Walter in Fort Wayne with my dad, then at Purdue with my dad. Thanks for being on tonight and encouraging positivity. Think our daughter got to see you at her high school this year too. Thank you for giving back."
Thank you guys. Appreciate that so much.
Of course. And then one more story here. Lisa says, "When I was a little kid, Dad would say, 'Get in the living room. It's time to watch Walter Jordan play.' I'm 59 years old and have been a fan ever since then. Walter will always be my first Boilermaker. Wayne Walls, Eugene Parker, great players." Lisa Beal.
Wow. Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that so much. Thank you.
So yeah, of course, you wore number 34. I cover the Chicago Bears for CHGO. I'm a diehard Bears fan. But you wore the number 34, and doing my research about you, and kind of scanning through your socials and stuff, I come to find out that you're one of your favorite all-time players is Walter Payton, and what I'm assuming is a Bears fan too. So maybe tell that story. I'd love to hear this story of your connection and love and admiration for Walter and the Bears.
Well, Sweetness had everything. You name it, he had smooth, talent, tough, character. His first name wasn't too bad either. And then he had number 34. Then he played for my Bears. Growing up in Indiana, we had WGN. We had 3 stations. WGN was one. And so we get all the Bears, the Cubs, and the Bulls games. We didn't have the Pacers. We didn't have the Colts. That's all we had. So you talk about from Dick Buckus to Bobby Douglas, you name some names, back in the day. And then when Sweetness came along and they went to the Super Bowl and McMahon and that Super Bowl shuffle, I mean, I was a huge football fan. I love football more than I love basketball coming up, but I happened to grow 12 inches in two 2 summers, so I guess I had to change plans. But yeah, I'm a Bears fan, man. My wife's
That's
she's
awesome.
a cheesehead. She's from Milwaukee, so you can imagine how. So she loves the Packers. But it's fun, and I'm a Bear fan. I don't care. I'm a loyal Bear fan. So
That's
you
great.
got two great signs in your background.
I'm telling you, you might have created a monster here, Walter, because we might become best friends here by the end of this. Because, like I said, I'm a diehard Bears fan. I cover the Bears, so I do pre and post game shows now. I just got this job over the last year. This bricklayer somehow.
Well, congratulations, bud.
Thank you. And yeah, somehow I manipulated the Chicago sports media to let me in their circle, and now I do pre and post game shows with some of the bigger media guys and a former player in Corey Wooten. So it is very thrilling. And have you ever met Doug Plank?
I've never met that. Dave Gerson.
I'm actually pretty good friends with him just through I've had him on my shows a few times, and we've created a friendship from that. You remind me a lot of Doug Plank. He could literally still play safety today, where it feels like you could walk out on that court and drop 20 if you wanted it. He still has that same energy. Doug Plank.
I'm not.
You're like, no, I can't.
I'm not Doug. I can sell a hell of a screen though. I can sell a hell of a screen. I can get you open. I promise. I get you open.
Well, I don't know. Braden might be able to find you pretty open for a knockdown shot, but Doug is incredible, and same kind of like energy and positivity and inspirational when you talk to him. And maybe one day I'll get you guys connected, because I think you would love to talk to Doug Plank. And when I call him, like it's I have to ask him if I can get off the phone after like 2.5 hours. Like he's just that type of guy, and he loves to talk. So maybe one day I'll get you guys linked up. Maybe that'll be my goal. So to close, you've been on for an hour, Walter, and I did not anticipate this, but we've really gone through a lot of different things that I'm very grateful that you were willing to give this much time, and I owe you one, as I owe so many people on this show for giving their time. But we didn't really talk too much about this team and their aspirations for March. So maybe just to close out, like, what are your expectations? Nobody thought this team was going to be number one in the country, even for a week, let alone for 2 months, and being one of the best teams and a potential number one seed and a chance to win their 25th Big Ten regular season championship. Now we've gotten to this point with this team, and you talked about how excited you were going into the season. What are your expectations for these guys come March, and all the pressure and that light at the end of the tunnel, and the dragon to slay to get to a Final Four and maybe one day even and win a national championship? What is your expectations for this team and what they can do?
Being honest with you, they far exceeded my expectations. Because what I look for is the team that played the way they're playing. They're so much fun to watch. They play for each other. Very seldom are they outworked. They're going to be in most every game because of their attitude, their willingness to be coachable, fight for each other, play the game the right way. They are giving us a chance to get to the Final Four. They have an opportunity to get to the Final Four. People say, well, what do you expect? What do you expect? What do you expect? I've learned that the only thing that matters is what they expect. It doesn't matter what any one of us expect. If they expect to get to the Final Four and they're willing to do what it takes to get to the Final Four, that's the most important thing. A lot of guys have played on teams where there's never a conversation about getting to the Final Four. There's never an expectation about winning the Big Ten. They don't have those team conversations. If they're having those conversations and that's their goal, team goal, and they're blocking out all the noise, and they have those expectations, we got a chance. We don't know what that is. We're not in the locker room. We're not with them, because they've got to make the sacrifices to do it. They've got to block out all the noise. They got to make sure that they got tunnel vision. They got to make sure they're doing everything like Michael Jordan would do, this tunnel vision. If these guys got tunnel vision, they have the expectation. Michael Jordan expected to win a championship every year. It wasn't what we expected. Michael Jordan, the Bulls, expected to win a championship every year. What do they expect? We don't know what that is. So I always wonder what their expectations are. I got a text from Mason today, and I said, I'm sorry I missed you. I didn't get a chance to say hello to you before I left. He texts me and he says, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it when we're cutting down the nets.
There we go.
I got excited about that, because Now it's letting you know they're having that conversation. He's thinking in his mind, we got a chance to cut down the nets. So you damn right, I'm hoping and praying and wishing we get it done. There's no question about it. But if they expect it, somebody's in trouble.
Well, you know what? I mean, they've
trouble.
been knocking on the door here. And when you put yourself in that position so many times, it's a law of averages in a lot of ways, because at the end of the day, you need some luck. You need some different things to go your way. I mean, I think the Virginia game is the greatest example of that. It wasn't like they weren't worthy of winning that game. It's just the ball didn't bounce their way, and that's life in sports. But this team, I think they learned some lessons, some tough lessons last year, falling short of a few goals that they had going into the season.
Absolutely.
And I think Zach Edey is the perfect leader for these guys. And I think he is keeping these, and Mason and Ethan Morton too. As you mentioned, those guys I think are crucial to this team keeping the right mindset. Because when they lost 3 out of 4, I was losing my mind here on the post-game show, but I think they were a little calmer than me. So I'm excited. I think we're all excited here to see what they got, but it's only a matter of time for Matt Painter and these Boilers, in my opinion. So one of these days we're going to be celebrating, and I hope we can bring you on when that day comes, even if it's for 5 minutes and not an hour, Walter. I promise I won't do this to you too many more times,
okay.
But it's you're gonna have a tough time shaking me. And my mom's been in the chat asking, like, when's the next time you're gonna be at Mackey Arena? I know you were there on Sunday, so maybe I won't be able to introduce you to her this
season. Tell your mom, I'm looking forward to meeting her, and we'll see her in Houston.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, Walter. Thank you so much for all your time. I know everyone in the chat and people that'll watch later will really appreciate this interview immensely. You really brought a lot and a lot of inspiration and great stories. So thank you so much. I'll definitely be ringing you up one day to pick your brain some more, and maybe we'll bring you on down the road again.
Appreciate you guys. You guys keep being great. Let's go get it done.
All right. That is Walter Jordan. Boiler up, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Walter. So that is exciting stuff. That was, I never know, I always say, I was going to say before the show to you guys, like, we are keeping this under an hour, like just the show. I thought the interview would only be like 30 minutes. And that's always the most unrealistic expectation of mine, is to try to be short and sweet. But like, man, when you start to get into some of those stories, and I apologize to both of you because I wanted you guys to be able to get more questions in. But like, when he started getting into old school basketball, that is my wheelhouse. And I refuse to move off of that topic until we like, I wanted to touch on so many. There's like 10 more things I want to talk to him about, but I figure one day we'll bring him back on if I don't burn that bridge completely. But
Walter Jordan was a tremendous subject. I mean, it is absolutely clear that he is compelling. He is the type of person that you want to listen to for hours on end. We've had the opportunity to listen to him for about an hour now, and that was great. I really appreciate him coming on. That was a lot of fun.
And it wasn't enough, was it?
Right.
Like it was an hour, and we barely talked about like this team. We talked a little bit about their toughness and things like that, but there was so much more we could have got into. But man, it's just like that was incredible. And I do have to shout out my guy Craig Bowers. He texted me. He's like, I do suggest the good guess. He does a great job, and is a vital part of what we do here. And it's unfortunate he wasn't able to join tonight, but Ben, you've done an incredible job, and Joe, you're always bringing it here, and I appreciate both of you guys very much for being.
I can't fill Craig's shoes; they're way too big for me.
Oh, come on now, you certainly can, and we'll be asking you to come on more as this season goes on.
Great.
Like I think we're gonna do a March Madness bracket show like we did last year, where the brackets are being revealed. We'll be on here reacting to them live. We'd certainly love to have you on, maybe bring you on for a post game or two.
Sounds good.
But Ben, we haven't had you on very much, and I actually have to do a interview with Assembly Call. I'm going into the Lion's Den in about 20 minutes from now. But Ben, since we haven't had you on yet, your perspective of this team this season, how much they've exceeded expectations, and what you anticipate here in the next few weeks and in the next month and a half or more, hopefully.
Sure, hopefully into April, right?
Yeah, that's right.
My opinion here is pretty simple. I was not expecting much, but I was also not expecting nothing, if you catch that kind of oxymoron logic that I'm putting together here. There is a lot of talent on this team, and there is a really good coach at the helm. When you put those two things together, magic can happen. You get that right spark, you get that right blend of teammates who are playing off of each other and in a position that they can use their skill set to play their role and go forward. Jaden Ivey was a tremendous player. Travion Williams, Sasha Stefanovic, everybody from last year was tremendous. But something is a little bit different about this team. Something seems to be sticking and gluing. So going forward, who knows? I mean, I was at the Virginia game in Louisville. I'm standing there next to my son, and I was about 100% sure we were going to the Final Four. And when the miracle or disaster, whatever you want to call it, happened, I had to convince myself first and foremost. Don't cry in front of my son. Don't cry in front of my son. Don't cry in front of my son. But secondly, it just goes to show you that sometimes it's your time. And, that was Virginia's time to take control. And this is an opportunity. Who knows? I do know this. If you keep putting yourself in position to succeed like Matt Painter has over the last few years, eventually something's going to break through, whether it be a miracle, whether it be a Mamadou Diakite last second floater to force overtime. Who knows what can happen? Things that are strange happen in March, and why not Purdue? Who knows? Maybe this year, maybe next year. Who knows when it could happen? But he's put himself in position to succeed.
What do you think, Joe? Since I haven't let you talk, and
hey, you're all good. I was just enjoying listening. No, I think he's spot on, right? Like, there's just something about this team. You could feel it kind of pretty early on, from Portland at least, at the kind of is the latest point. Like, there's some cohesiveness about the team. You hear it from the guys, like they enjoy hanging out with each other. They seem like really good friends off the court.
Yep.
And obviously we don't know the extent last year and all that, but it just seems like this year's it's just a good group. And potential to bring back everybody. I'm still in the camp of Edie's gone after this year. Not a right now problem, but I've just really enjoyed this year so much. It's been a lot of fun watching this team.
Well, I'm a Cubs fan, and I think some Purdue fans get annoyed when I bring up this comparison, but they do remind me a lot of the Cubs, and their fan base reminds me a lot of the Cubs fan base. Like before the Cubs finally slayed the dragon and won a World Series, we were always very on edge, very pessimistic. Once we get to the playoffs, it got even worse. We were gloom and doom, waiting for that fateful thing to happen to us, and curses and things of that nature, and a rivalry with the Cardinals that we never seem to have the upper hand in. And then one day it started changing, and all of a sudden Cubs fans were confident. And like my mom and I walked into Game 6 of the NLCS against Clayton Kershaw, and they slayed that dragon, and the curse was broken to get to the World Series. A lot of people don't realize the curse was to make it to the World Series, not just to win it. And I'd never seen the Cubs fan base so positive going into the game, walking into the stadium. We were not scared. And that's how I knew it was going to happen. And maybe it'll be that way with Purdue, or maybe it'll be miracle games that we lose 20 years of our lives off of. But I think Matt Painter at some point is going to get it done without question. So it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, but it's not easy. It takes a lot of, luck to win an NCAA tournament. I do want to shout out our guys over at Mad Mushroom before we clock out here. We posted some things on socials today, but I just want to make sure you guys all know that if you go to Mad Mushroom, you get the best cheese sticks in the game, the best pizza in the game. Use our coupon code BITS for 15% off any order you make with Mad Mushroom. If you use our coupon code BITS for Boilers in the Stands, you'll get 15% off any order, and you'll be giving us a shout out too. So shout out to Mad Mushroom and Fan Bags for being proud sponsors of Boilers in the Stands. So Jesse Justin says the inside scoop on Ron Barnes guys, is he is from Fort Wayne, was Larry Bird's backup at Indiana State, but liked to tell us kids he beat Bird one-on-one before he left Indiana State. So this was and then Jesse says he used to get handsy with the plastic models of anatomy in sex ed class. And I'm like, why, Jesse, would you bring this up with Walter on? I have no idea. You bait and switched me with this comment and did totally put me on the spot there. Like, I thought maybe this was like an inside joke that I was missing, but Jesse apparently was filling us in on that. So
it's a bit intense.
Yeah, who knows? But we all had some crazy teachers in our day. I know my Mr. Daly was our gym teacher. He was certainly nuts too. So you just never know with some. My mom's a teacher and she's crazy. No, I'm kidding. I love you, Mom. I'm actually crazy. I made her crazy. If she is crazy, it's because of me. Some people were asking in the chat, is this my mom? And this is my mom, Barb Graham. That's my mom. And she's been through a lot with me. She's actually got my daughter tonight, giving me and my wife a night to hang out once I get out of here. And then I also got to do one more thing, but that's why I also wanted to do it. So Grammy Addy night, as it were, Troy Lewis Jackson says, what time do you guys go live tomorrow? Give me a break, Troy. I've gone 3 straight days. We had the post-game show on Sunday. I'm literally, I'm stretching myself as thin as I possibly can here. So tomorrow we're going to take a break. How's that sound? And we're going to regroup for the big game on Saturday, Purdue versus IU. Very excited for that. Saturday night, primetime hoops. Northwestern and Illinois just got started, and I know everybody wants to get to watching that. It's early in the first half, so we'll see how that shakes out, because if Northwestern loses tonight at Illinois, if Illinois can do something with their lives, then maybe Purdue can clinch a share of the Big Ten title on Saturday with a win over IU, which would be a pretty special scene. So, but we will always keep the content coming, maybe not daily, but it's certainly, we're in the wheelhouse right now with everything going on. So you're going to be getting a lot of shows over the next few weeks and month. And we're going to keep bringing great stuff. And Joe's doing his thing on Twitter. More shows, more breadsticks. I need to lay off the breadsticks, but in this case with the cheese sticks at Mad Mushroom, you can't go wrong. So maybe that's as good as we get. But Jeff Parks, really appreciate the kind words. It's definitely a great episode. And I think everybody here at Boilers in the Stands, like I said, is contributing in a big way, even though Craig Bowers couldn't be here today. He was a big, advocate for bringing Walter Jordan on, and Walter responded right away, very friendly on Twitter DMs. And like I said to him, and it is no smoke. And I had a lot of fun talking to Zach Eady, and Matt Painter scares the shit out of me, and all these guys that we've had on, like Fletcher Lawyer and Ethan Morton, and obviously Sasha's great to talk to. But that was really cool to learn the history with Walter Jordan, his history, and the history of the game in a way from his perspective. So for me as a basketball lifer, that was as good as it gets. I hate to rank them, but it's hard to not put that at the top of the list for me. So that, I think, is going to wrap things up for tonight, guys. I said it was going to be in under an hour, and once again, we hit an hour and a half, and so we've officially hit the wrap it up segment. I promise, Ben, the next time you come on, you'll be able to talk more.
No, it's all good.
I wanted, your energy and enthusiasm, and I thought you had some great questions with
Sure.
Talking to Walter about like how he gives back. You could really see him light up in that
Sure.
moment. So you certainly brought it tonight, but like I said, I want to be able to give people a platform of their
Sounds
own
good.
on here, and not
Sounds
just
good. Hey,
me
how about this?
talking out my ass.
How about this? I get you on my radio show next high school football season, and if you want to cover a high school game, we can get you on air doing that as well. And then you can bring me back on this, and we'll call it even.
That sounds great.
All right.
And then you just got to worry about me talking too much.
No, that's okay. I'm really good as the host of the show to cutting my correspondence off, so I'm pretty good at that.
And I need somebody to keep me in check.
You got it.
Normally it's Craig, but he's not here, so this could easily go off the rails. So before it does, Yeah, hit that like button if you're subscribing on YouTube. We hit 1,000 subscribers today, just an hour or two ago. We've been driving towards that. I didn't think it was going to come this quickly, and then Zach Eady came on, and all of a sudden people found where we were at. And we're on Apple and Spotify, thanks to Joe. He's downloading those shows on audio platforms. If you ever want to listen to this show just on audio when you're in the office or doing whatever you're doing, we like that you tune in through video, because we bring a lot of video content throughout our interviews that I think separates us from a traditional podcast. But however you guys want to get what we're process our materials, however you're processing our materials, is the great Brian Newbert would say. I'm not going to steal his line, but I just did, I guess, for today. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. So thank you for subscribing and hitting 1,000 subscribers. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Keep hitting that like button on YouTube. Follow us on my Facebook page is like 15 away from hitting 1,000. So we appreciate everyone's support. This has been a big year for what we're doing here, and we're just going to keep growing from there. So with that being said, everyone have a good night. Let's see what happens with this Illinois Northwestern game. We got Purdue and IU this Saturday night. We're going to be there, and we're going to have our post-game show once the game is over, and maybe once all the festivities, if there is festivities, we'll have to get to our stations and wait all that out. So be patient with us on Saturday night. At some point, we will be going live for our post-game show, as we always do. So with that being said, for Joe Jackson and Ben Kolodzinski, I'm Greg Braggs Jr., and this is Boilers in the Stands. Let's go, Boilers. Beat IU and Boiler up.